Hi everyone, this is Donny Lowy from Closeoutexplosion.com. If you're involved in the wholesale and closeout business, or you're looking to get into the wholesale and closeout business, you've started to do your research, you're going to come across the term wholesale fashion designers. Now, a wholesale fashion designer is not a designer that is specifically selling wholesale, but it's a reference to businesses that focus on selling wholesale fashion designer wear. In other words, it can be an up-and-coming designer, or it could be an established designer. It could be clothing by an established brand like Dahari, or it could be clothing by a boutique or private label brand like Vor. Those are two brands that I carry in my warehouse, so I'm familiar with them. And what I can tell you, when you are exploring wholesale fashion designer wear, you need to first know if your customers buy strictly on brand, or are they open to buying fashion that is not brand name, that is not designer wear, but is highly stylish and might be similar in style or quality or fashion to the brand name clothing that they're used to buying. Now, there are a few different ways that designer fashion wear reaches the wholesale and closeout level. The first way, and there are many ways that I might not cover, and of course the industry is always changing, so there might even be newer ways that will arise in the future. So the first step is a designer produces a clothing line. The designer has that clothing line and showcases the clothing line in his showroom, or he takes it directly to the buyers of department stores, of large retailers, and of boutiques. Now imagine the designer has prepared 200 pieces of clothing. And the clothing is really fashionable, it's stylish, but people are not familiar with his brand because he's a new designer. And unfortunately, after trying to sell the clothing and marketing the clothing, there isn't a demand for his styles by those buyers. So he'll look to liquidate those samples to a wholesale business or to a closeout business such as my own, and then he'll produce a new set of samples using a different style, using different patterns. They'll have a different fashion, and then he'll approach those buyers again. Now, often what will happen is they might buy some of his samples or might be interested in some of his samples, but not all of them. In that case, he'll only produce clothing for certain samples, or I should say based on certain samples, and not for other samples. So you can still buy those samples which he doesn't need at a wholesale and closeout price. Now, once the designer has already sold the merchandise, even if he's sold clothing very successfully based on his samples, there's going to be a point where he's not going to need those samples anymore, and then he'll sell those samples into the market. There are up-and-coming designers that do this, and there are also large established brands that do this as well. When they're done with their samples, they'll sell those samples into the wholesale and into the closeout market. Another way that designer wear reaches the wholesale and closeout business is from canceled orders. Whether it's an up-and-coming designer or it's a very large established designer, he or she will produce clothing and the order will be canceled at the last minute. Now the designer is sitting with boxes and boxes of clothing and he needs to sell them. So he'll approach a closeout or a wholesale warehouse and sell the merchandise to that closeout warehouse. And I myself have bought a lot of really nice fashionable and designer wear that way, and then I'll sell it to my customers at below the wholesale price. And now another way that designer wear reaches the closeout and wholesale market is through department store overstock. A department store will actually buy the clothing from the designer, and now when the season is done, they will liquidate the remaining inventory to a wholesale or closeout warehouse. I also buy department store overstock, and then I sell that clothing to retailers and to other wholesalers, and you're welcome to visit my warehouse. Another way that designer wear reaches the wholesale and closeout market is through store returns. That's clothing that was purchased by the customer, and either the customer tried it on, or the clothing became damaged, or the customer simply changed their mind and returned that merchandise back to the retailer, let's say to the department store, and then the department store sold that store return clothing to a closeout or wholesale warehouse. I strongly recommend that you be very careful in buying store return merchandise because a lot of it can be damaged. If you are going to buy it, you should either be ready to fix it or make sure that you buy it at a low enough price that you can still sell the merchandise that's in good condition and compensate you for the merchandise that is not in good condition and still make a profit on the overall deal. 99% of the merchandise I focus on is overstock merchandise, and I mean there are exceptions. If I buy handbags, then I will buy overstock and store returned handbags, but when I focus on clothing, then I focus on overstock clothing. So you're definitely welcome to visit my warehouse. If you have any questions, please call me or send me an email. My website is closeoutexplosion.com. Have a great day.